You are, Ethan. You're standing in the doorway of your apartment, holding the edge of the frame the same way a drowning man might grip the side of a boat. Your girlfriend, if you can still call her that, stands in front of you with that familiar look on her face. Not angry, not frustrated, just expectant, like she already knows what you're going to say. And she's right, because she always is. That's how it's been for months. Every time she asks for something, every time she hints at something, every time she tilts her voice in that specific way, you respond with the same quiet word that has ruined more of your life than you will ever admit. Yes, you say it again. You hear it escape before you even think. You feel it like a collapse inside your chest. She smiles in that warm, relieved, slightly condescending way and brushes past you, already opening her laptop, already talking about how she knew you'd understand. You don't correct her. You never do. You close the door slowly as she walks away, and that's when you feel it, the weight in your ribs. The invisible heaviness that comes when you betray yourself in tiny, quiet ways nobody else sees. It's the heaviness of a man who keeps giving pieces of himself to maintain the peace. You stand there for a moment, breathing the stale air of an apartment that doesn't even feel like yours anymore. Because every corner of this space has slowly become hers. Her decisions, her preferences, her rhythms. You just blended into the background, the way a shadow blends into the wall. She didn't take control. You handed it to her. A little at a time. One, yes, at a time. You walk into the kitchen. She's still talking, somewhere in the other room, about her day, her stress, her plans. You hear her voice, but you don't feel connected to it. You're thinking about the moment your mouth said yes, even though your entire body said no. You told yourself, like always, that it wasn't a big deal, that it was easier to give in, that it wasn't worth the conflict, that you didn't want to ruin the mood. But the truth is simpler and darker. You're re-afraid of what happens when you stop being agreeable. Your quietness was supposed to be strength. Your calmness was supposed to be love. Your patience was supposed to be stability. But now you feel like your silence is slowly killing something inside you. You sit at the kitchen table, the same place you always end up when you feel stuck. The overhead light hums in the silence. You run your hands over the wood, tracing the grain. You're stalling. You don't want to face the thoughts that are forming in your mind, but they come anyway. You realize you haven't said no in weeks, maybe months. You can't remember the last time you disagreed. You can't remember the last time you expressed frustration. You can't remember the last time you allowed yourself to show anger. Because men like you aren't rewarded for anger. You learned a long time ago that when you raise your voice, when you push back, when you challenge someone's expectations, you get labeled as difficult, aggressive, emotional, unstable. So you learn to hide it. You learn to say yes. You learn to swallow the burn in your stomach. You learn to hold your breath until the urge to speak passes. You learn to shrink, not physically, something deeper. You shrank your needs, your desires, your boundaries, your truth. You shrank until your quietness looked like peacefulness and your compliance looked like love. But tonight, something feels different. You don't know why. Maybe because you're tired. Maybe because today was bad enough at work. Maybe because you're slowly noticing that no one in your life actually knows you, not the real you. They know the version of you that nods, the version that agrees, the version that keeps the boat balanced, the version that absorbs the tension so no one else has to feel it. They know Ethan, the easy man, not Ethan the human. You hear her voice from the living room. Ethan? Did you grab the laundry like I asked? You feel your jaw lock? She asked you hours ago. You forgot? Or maybe you didn't forget. Maybe you ignored it because you were exhausted. But she asked the way she always asks, like a boss giving a task to an employee who won't push back. You mutter something about being tired. She sighs in that disappointed way that punches through your chest like a slow knife. Ethan, come on. I need you to be more reliable. She doesn't yell, she doesn't insult, she doesn't snap, and that's what makes it worse. The subtle manipulator never pushes hard enough for you to fight back. She pushes just soft enough to make you feel guilty. You stand up slowly and walk to her. She's sitting cross-legged on the couch, scrolling something on her laptop, barely looking at you. That's another thing you noticed over time. She talks to you like someone who assumes you'll comply, like someone who expects obedience without thinking of it as obedience. Her tone always floats between gentle request and quiet command, and you've never challenged it. Not once. She glances up. It's fine, I'll just do it myself. And you can feel the emotional hook in those 8 words. They're not neutral. They're not simple. They're crafted. Whether she realizes it or not, I'll do it myself means you failed me. It means you disappointed me. It means you should feel bad. It means you owe me. And you do. You always owe her. Because you keep buying peace with your own self-respect. She stands and walks to the bedroom, leaving you alone in the living room where her words echo like accusations. I'll do it myself. You feel a pulse of irritation. Small but sharp, you ignore it like you always do. You breathe in, you breathe out, but the irritation stays. It clings to your ribs like heat because something in you knows the truth. She is not angry you didn't get the laundry. She asks. Angry that you a man she can fully shape. So she shapes you through guilt. Instead, you sit on the couch, the TV is off, the room is silent, except for the sound of your pulse in your ears and that S when you feel it. That heavy, familiar quiet. The kind of quiet that S not peace, the kind of quiet that comes when a man has run out of hope, but not out of love. You're not silent because you find you're silent. Because you have no energy left to speak. You think back to the last argument you avoided last week. She questioned why you didn't. Text her back immediately while you were driving. You apologized even though you didn't. Need to. She sighed and said, You always shut down when I bring up concerns. You remember how she looked at you. Like she was the reasonable one, and you were the problem. You remember how you said yes, how you agreed, how you folded, and after she went to sleep, you stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying the conversation in your head. Telling yourself you should have said something, but knowing you never would, because that's who you were, a man who showed less anger. Less frustration, less resistance. Not because you didn't feel those things, but because you were terrified of what would happen if you actually let them out. You thought silence was noble. You thought patience was maturity. You thought agreement was love, but now you're restarting to see what your silence really became. A grave where your own hopes were buried slowly, quietly, respectfully. You stand and walk to the bathroom. You stare at your reflection in the mirror, not the face, the eyes. You look at yourself like you're re-examining a stranger. You look older, not in years. In spirit, you look like a man who has said yes too many times and has run out of pieces to give. You look like a man who has memorized every slight, every guilt trip, every subtle dismissal. Not because you want to hold grudges, but because you never had the courage to speak when the wounds were fresh. You remember everything. Every moment, she said. It's fine, I'll do it myself. Every moment, she sighed, and turned away. Every moment, she said. I didn't mean it that way. After cutting you in a way that words alone shouldn't, be able to every moment, she'll use tone instead of volume. Guilt instead of anger. Disappointment instead of discussion. You splash water on your face. It doesn't help. You sit on the edge of the tub, the way a defeated man sits at the edge of a battlefield. He never wanted to fight, and you think about the first time she used that soft, calculated tone. You didn't see it. Then attraction blinds you to manipulation. Love blinds you to imbalance. But over time, patterns reveal truth. You start to connect dots that were always there, but you refused to see. There was the time, she said. I guess you're too busy for me, when you were working a late shift. That wasn't your fault. You apologized. You shouldn't have. There was the time, she said. You never think about how your actions affect me. When you forgot to respond to a meme she sent, while you were exhausted, you apologized. You shouldn't have. There was the time, she said. I wish you cared as much as I do. After you didn't match her emotional intensity in a meaningless argument, you apologized. You shouldn't have. You said yes so many times that you forgot how to speak. In any other direction, you close your eyes. And that S. When it hits you, men break loudly, men break quietly, they break in the spaces between words. They break in the silence after too many yeses. They break in the moments when their thoughts finally speak louder than their emotions. Men don't walk away because of one argument. They walk away because of thousands of tiny moments that looked harmless on the surface, but carved them slowly from the inside. You stand again. You feel something shift in your posture, barely noticeable, but undeniably real. It's the moment before the moment. The moment when a man stops living from his heart and starts living from his mind. You don't say it, you don't announce it, you don't declare it, you just feel it. The way you feel. The first cold wind of winter before the season actually changes. You look down the hallway toward the bedroom, where she is still doing whatever she's doing. Unaware that a silent threshold has been crossed, your old self is still in control. For now, the version of you that bends. The version of you that explains. The version of you that accepts manipulation, wrapped in soft words. But not for much longer, because something inside you is waking up. You walk back to the living room. Her voice calls out again. Ethan, did you hear me earlier? You open your mouth to answer, and something stops you. You don't know what not yet, but it feels like the first moment in a long time where your mind speaks louder than your instincts. You sit down on the couch again. You stare at your hands. You realize how tired they look, how tired you look, how tired your soul feels. This is the freeze frame moment in your life. The moment before the story shifts. The moment before the man you were dies, and the man you were dies in the man you. Re-becoming finally opens his eyes. Because tonight something she won. TC, coming. Something you won. TC, coming. Something you won. T. Fully understand until the next time. This exact scenario plays out, and it will, because everything is about to repeat. But next time, you won't be the same, Ethan. You wake up the next morning, and everything feels the same. But nothing is the same. The apartment looks identical, the air smells the same. The rhythms of the morning follow the same script. You've lived for months, but something inside you has shifted. A small, quiet, invisible shift. Like the first crack in a frozen lake, it doesn't look like much from the outside. But you can feel the depth of it. You can feel that something underneath has broken open. You move through. You walk into the kitchen with a strange calmness in your chest. A calm that doesn't feel like surrender this time. It feels more like awareness. She's already awake, sitting at the table, coffee in hand, laptop open. The world she lives in always moves fast. The world inside you has always moved quietly. She looks up when you walk in. Hey, she says, in that soft, default tone that hides more than it reveals. I need your help with something later, okay? You know this moment, this familiar crossroads? This is where the old Ethan would say, yes, instantly, without questioning, without thinking, without checking in with himself. Just a reflex, a conditioned response, a survival strategy disguised as cooperation. But today, you don't answer right away. You stand there for a second longer than you usually do, just long enough for her eyes to shift, just long enough for her to sense that something feels different. That's the first change, the power of a pause. You don't owe instant obedience. You don't owe instant reassurance. You don't owe instant compliance. You owe yourself consideration. Her eyebrows lift slightly. "Ethan," she asks again. This time, there's something new in her tone, uncertainty. Because when a man who always says yes doesn't answer immediately, people feel it like a disruption in the script. You pull out a chair and sit across from her, slowly, calmly. You don't look defensive. You don't look angry. You don't look apologetic. You look present. You say, "What exactly do you need help with?" It's a simple question, neutral, mature, reasonable. But it lands in her chest like a challenge, because she's not used to you asking for clarity. She's used to you accepting vague tasks and emotional responsibility. Without hesitation, she blinks. The thing I mentioned yesterday? The storage unit?" You nod, not yes, just acknowledgement. This is the second change. You stop giving agreement, disguised as listening. You listen without promising, without committing, without folding. She watches you carefully now. She senses the difference. She senses the shift. But she can't name it. Subtle manipulators rely on the predictability of your emotional patterns. The moment your patterns change, their sense of control wavers. She leans back. "Is something wrong?" she asks. The old you would panic. The old you would rush to reassure her. The old you would say, "No, no, everything's fine," even when everything wasn't fine. But today, you don't lie. You don't confess either. You choose the middle ground, calm honesty without emotional exposure. You say, "I'm thinking." 2 words. That's all. 2 words that break the entire dynamic, because thinking is something you never allowed yourself to do out loud. Thinking was something you did alone at night. Thinking was something you did quietly in the bathroom mirror. But speaking it in the moment shifts the frame. She frowns, trying to read you. Reading is what she does best. Reading is the entire reason you kept saying yes. You thought she was reading your needs. She was reading your fears. She closes her laptop slowly, placing her hand on top of it like she asks, bracing for a conversation she didn't plan for. "Ethan, are you upset about last night?" You look at her, not with accusation, not with blame, but with clarity. You say, "I'm not upset. I'm paying attention." Her eyes tighten slightly. There it is, the micro-expression of discomfort. Subtle manipulators thrive on emotional fog. When you speak clearly, they lose footing. She exhales and looks away, pretending to check something on her phone. "I wasn't trying to make you feel bad," she mutters. There it is again, the subtle manipulation. She frames her intention as harmless to erase the impact of her behavior. The old Ethan would have said, "I know, it's okay." But you let the moment breathe. You don't rescue her from the discomfort of honesty. You don't comfort her out of guilt. You don't collapse into reassurance. Instead, you say, "If that's true, then we can talk about it, openly." You say it gently. Nothing harsh, nothing aggressive. Nothing emotional. Just a clear statement, a boundary disguised as a sentence. She stares at you like she's trying to decode a new language. Because in her world, the man who always agrees is supposed to avoid difficult conversations. The man who always says yes isn't supposed to ask for openness. The man who always stays calm isn't supposed to shift the frame. You're breaking a pattern she depended on, and she feels it. She says, "I don't want to fight." Another soft tactic, subtle manipulators use, avoiding conflict as a shield. If you say anything uncomfortable, they frame it as you making a fight. But you don't fall into that old trap. You say, talking isn't fighting, and you hold her gaze, calm, steady, unmoved. She looks away again. Her breathing changes. You can see the gears turning. She expected you to be predictable. She expected you to shrink. Instead, you re-showing her a version of you she's never met. A version of you who doesn't crumble at the slightest tension. She stands and walks to the sink, giving herself space. "You're acting weird today," she says. Not as an insult, as an accusation wrapped in concern. The old you would have apologized immediately. The new you doesn't defend yourself. You simply say, "I'm acting like someone who stopped saying yes without thinking." That line lands like a small earthquake in the room. Not loud, not destructive, but undeniable. She turns around fast. "Why would you say that? Are you implying I take advantage of you?" You don't take the bait. You don't get emotional. Emotion is where you lose your power. Emotion is where the old pattern pulls you back in. You stay still. You say, "I'm implying I haven't spoken up enough. That's on me." This is the difference between old Ethan and new Ethan. Old Ethan internalized blame. New Ethan acknowledges responsibility without absorbing guilt. Old Ethan tried to avoid her reactions. New Ethan isn't afraid of her emotions. She stops. She studies you. She doesn't know how to respond to this version of you, the version that doesn't justify, doesn't explain, doesn't collapse. She walks back to the table, sits down. Her voice softens. "I just want things to feel normal," she says. You know what she means? She wants the old version of you, the one who made everything easy for her, the one who chose peace over honesty, the one who said yes before understanding the cost. You sit down again, slow and calm. You say, "Normal wasn't healthy for me." Her lip trembles for a second, because now the mirror is turning. Now she has to confront the dynamic she helped build. She whispers, "So what do you want now?" You answer without hesitation, "I want to stop abandoning myself." The room goes silent. It's not the empty silence of old Ethan. Not the defeated silence. Not the heavy silence of swallowed emotions. This is a different silence, a defining silence. A silence that draws a line in the sand. She looks down at her hands. Then she looks up again. "Are you saying I hurt you?" You don't soften the truth. You say, "I'm saying I allowed things that hurt me, and that's going to change." She looks like she's been cracked open. Not by aggression. Not by shouting. Not by blame. By a calm truth she can't maneuver around. You can see her running through every subtle tactic she usually uses. The sighs, the guilt, the soft disappointment. The emotional softness that turns into quiet pressure. But none of it works now. Because none of it penetrates a mind that's awake. This is what it looks like when a man starts living with his mind instead of his heart. Not cold, not cruel, just aware. Present, steady. She leans back slowly. "So what does that mean for us?" You breathe in, not dramatically, just normally. For the first time in a long time, you're breathing normally in front of her. You say, "It means I'm going to think before I agree. I'm going to speak before I suppress. I'm going to show up honestly, not conveniently." She swallows. "And if I don't like that version of you?" You hold her gaze. Not with defiance, with truth. "Then you don't like me? You like the version that made your life easier?" Her face breaks for a moment. Only a moment. Then she looks away. You see something flicker in her expression. Doubt, fear, realization. She whispers, "Why now?" And your answer is simple, "Because I'm done living in silence." You stand not to end the conversation, but to end the dynamic. She doesn't chase you. She doesn't call your name. She just sits there, processing a reality she never expected. Not because you threatened her, not because you yelled, but because you changed your frame. The entire power dynamic has shifted without a single raised voice. You walk to the balcony and look out at the early morning sky. The light is soft. The air is cool. For the first time in months, you feel a sense of internal solidity. You're not angry. You're not resentful. You're not hurt. You're aware. And awareness changes everything. You stay outside until you hear her footsteps behind you. She stands next to you, not too close, not too far, quiet, hesitant, respectful in a way she never had to be before. "Ethan," she says softly, "I didn't realize you felt this way." You nod. "I know. Why didn't you tell me earlier?" You take a slow breath and answer with a truth. "Most men will never speak. Because I was still hoping you'd see me on your own." She exhales slowly. "Hope can kill you, you know?" You nod again. It almost did. Her eyes soften with something real this time. Not manipulation. Not control. Not the familiar emotional script. Something raw. Something human. She says, "I don't want to lose you." You look at her, calm and collected. "Then don't ask me to lose myself." She closes her eyes, and you know she understands. You know this moment changed something fundamental. Not because she suddenly transformed into a perfect partner, but because you're no longer a silent participant in your own diminishing. The day continues. You both move around each other with a new awareness. She tries once or twice to fall back into old patterns, the soft sigh, the gentle guilt, the subtle framing. But you don't react the way you used to. You don't apologize for things that aren't wrong. You don't rush to fix emotions that don't belong to you. You don't fill the silence with self-sacrifice. You stay steady, present, clear. Later that evening, she sits next to you on the couch. She doesn't reach for you the way she usually does. Instead, she waits. You notice it immediately. The waiting, the respect, the space. "Ethan," she says quietly, "I want to be better at this. I need you to tell me when something hurts. Instead of letting it build inside you." You nod. "I can do that." She asks, "Are you still here with me?" And you answer honestly, "Yes." But not as the version you used to have. As me. She leans into you slowly, carefully, like she's touching something fragile. But you're not fragile anymore. She's the one learning how to hold something new. The night settles around you both. It's quiet, but not the silence that used to suffocate you. This silence is the sound of a man reclaiming himself. The sound of a dynamic being rewritten without war. The sound of a relationship hitting a crossroads where truth either strengthens it or ends it. You don't know which one it will be, but you know something you didn't know before? You're not afraid of either outcome. Because real strength isn't staying in a place that hurts you. Real strength is being willing to walk away from a version of yourself that kept you small. You sit there with her, letting the stillness stretch between you. And for the first time, the silence feels honest. She looks up at you. "Ethan, yeah. Thank you for telling me the truth." You nod. "Thank you for listening." She squeezes your hand lightly. "Don't disappear again." You meet her eyes calm, steady, new, and you say the line that defines everything that comes next. "I won't disappear if I don't have to hide." The room exhales around you. The night softens. And inside you, something that was dead begins to breathe again. Not hope, not attachment. Something deeper. Something stronger. Something you haven't felt in a long time. Self-respect. You sit with that feeling, knowing she sees the change. Knowing she feels it too. Knowing that tomorrow, the dynamic will rise or fall, depending on how you both show up. But tonight, You know one truth that will shape the man you are from this moment forward. You stopped saying yes to gain peace. You started saying truth to gain yourself. Then that is the day. Ethan stopped being someone you survived and became someone you finally respected.